got this.
I'm always a little nervous before the show, so.
The first time.
Are you nervous?
Very.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man.
So it's not just me.
I was typing.
All right, so this is episode 7 with Ryan Azia, Jawfox Post-Production. Take 1. Hey everyone, Alexander here, back at you with another episode of Post-Production, a podcast designed to explore the creative process and the creatives within that process. Today I am joined by Ryan Azia, a creative here in the DMV area, so stay tuned. What's up everyone, Alexander, JawfoxPhotography.com. Hope everyone's doing all right. Welcome back to another episode of Post-Production. Today I am joined by Ryan Azia. Ryan Azia is the executive director of Richmond Fashion Week. He is also an artist of all types, a photographer, a videographer. Welcome, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the introduction.
Absolutely, yeah, no, I first met you at Richmond Fashion Week, then what, maybe almost 2 years?
2 years.
Then, yeah.
Do you remember when we first met?
I do, yeah.
It was backstage.
Yep.
I came up to you.
Yeah, and I asked you what kind of camera you had. You had it all taped up. And,
yeah, because I was hiding my gear. Because that's like the first thing all photographers ask you.
Yeah, it's like, what? Yep, but I'm a geardo when it comes to that. So, talk to us a little bit about yourself. And what did I miss? You've done it all.
Yeah. So I'm an artist, a designer, both fashion and jewelry, creative director, executive director for Richmond Fashion Week, serial entrepreneur, just a happy-go-lucky guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You got a smile on your face every time I see you, and it's because you're pursuing your passion on multiple different avenues, and that's what we're here to talk about today, is channeling that creative energy when you want to go and do this and this and this. And I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. I'm saying, how do you channel it all into a productive focus that allows you to really enhance your workflow when it comes to creativity. So with that in mind, give us a little bit of your background, where it all began for you in terms of creating and art.
Growing up, we didn't have a lot of social media. It was hot where I'm from, so we don't really play out during the day. So you spend a lot of time with comic books, cartoons, so you draw art. Art was one thing you just kept, doing over and over and over again. And then
what comic book in particular?
Spider-Man.
Yeah?
Yeah, Spider-Man was
classic.
Was the man, you know what I mean?
And what, you'd replicate the artwork you saw there?
Yeah, but the funny thing was, even though I like Spider-Man, I was more leaning towards the bad guys.
Okay.
Like Hobgoblin, for some strange reason, I thought it was just cool just flying around in a cape throwing bombs everywhere, which is not,
So you related more with the bad guy than you did.
Well, the anti-heroes. They weren't really bad. They weren't really good. They were just fighting for a cause, whether it was right or wrong.
No.
And that kind of goes into creativity.
Absolutely.
You're doing, what
Absolutely.
you want to do.
So when did you transition from drawing comic books to doing what you were going to be doing?
Yeah. So getting into fashion, my grandmother was a seamstress. My aunt was a fashion designer making wedding dresses.
Oh, very nice.
So we were just around. And then my mom was heavily involved with the pageant, like the Miss Universe pageant. So.
And where was this?
Philippines.
Oh, okay.
So I was been, just surrounded by that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Seeing, you don't really pay attention, but you're watching a lot of fashion magazines and you're looking through stuff. That stuff gets ingrained in you. It influences you, the artwork, the designs, and everything. So doing a lot of design work was just kind of just me mimicking my aunt and the women in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then jewelry was actually kind of funny because I went to a jewelry, convention with my mom because she loves jewelry. So we went there. And she bought this red coral necklace for $1,000. And I'm like, I can make that.
Yeah.
So she was like, well, why don't you? And I'm just like, oh, okay, typical, Asian mom. Why not? Why not A+, right? So I was like, fine. So it was a challenge to me. So then I started making it. And then that's how I got into making jewelry. I started taking these classes. And what was funny about one of those classes is that I took the business side of it. And the professor at that time, she was ruthless. Like, she was like, everyone bring in your jewelry. And so I brought mine in, and she was like, this sucks. Like, half the class was like gone, like the next day. Like, no one came in. But I stuck with it. I was just like, I'm paying this woman to give me advice, right? Yeah. But whatever. So one day I'm in like the public library just researching, and I saw these pair of earrings in this book from like the 50s or something, like 70s. And I was like, those are some cool earrings. So you go to the back and then you see who made it. And I was like, oh my God, it was the professor who was teaching. Yeah. I was like, okay, so she's legit. Yeah. So I started paying attention. So the jewelry design, that, and then getting into photography was interesting because I have a business partner in the DMV area. Him and I do a lot of photography, videography work, mostly biopics and documentary style. But when we first met, it was in the clubs. He was a nightclub photographer. And when I was doing all this designing work, I would hit him up and be like, hey man, you want to boost your portfolio and help me get some good pictures. So
of the jewelry.
Products. Exactly. So I was doing a lot of creative directing for years, and he would do pictures. I didn't really start taking photography until I moved to Richmond because he was no longer there to take pictures. Yeah. So I had to take the pictures.
But you realized how important branding and marketing and the visual arts.
Yeah, from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
so you'd say that photography and the videography is all spawned by your original passion, which was art and
art
the jewelry,
design. Yep,
art design. And then talk to us a little about how you got into clothing design. Did that spawn off jewelry making, or was it something?
Yeah. So I don't know. This is a funny story, but it all started with one T-shirt, and this T-shirt, I was at a strip club in Boston, right?
Where most good ideas come.
Well, the funny thing about strip clubs is that in Miami, I'm going to segue a little bit. In Miami, okay, during, I want to say the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a renaissance in Miami, right? I mean, art, everything, all that stuff, like fashion, like everything was going on. So then everyone was talking business. The internet boom. So all these internet people were coming down trying to buy these nightclubs and stuff. So people would go into these strip clubs and have these meetings there. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, like, if you can focus with loud music, beautiful women, alcohol, and whatever else is there, you're focused on business.
Right.
So fast forward into Boston. I'm at this place called Centerfolds. Back then, Chinatown wasn't the greatest area, and the place is probably, it's still kind of seedy, but there was this one female dancing, and I was just like, wow, this lady is blessed. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a shirt that says blessed. So I made this little like old English shirt, blessed, and I ended up selling like hundreds of those shirts.
Nice.
So that was probably my first, I guess, avenue into fashion. Like, I knew I could make money selling shirts.
Right.
Streetwear. And so from there, it started with the streetwear, and then you would sell them for a certain amount of, things, but you would never get rich off clothing like that. You'd have to sell so many to make a decent profit margin. And at that time, everything was silk screen, so you were making like dollars off of the shirts. Mm-hmm. So that, went into more fashion design, like a higher end like fashion design where you can sell. Now for dollars, you're making hundreds of dollars. Yeah. And then go into jewelry where the markup is even like 500% more,
So when you were doing when you're doing the shirts, when you were doing photography, were you still focused on jewelry design? Were you still focused on all your other projects?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I still had a 9-to-5. I was doing accounting, auditing, and finance. I mean, it was insane. Yeah. And I still pursued my dream, or I wouldn't even say it was a dream. Like,
just your passion, what was calling you? Or
I wouldn't even say it was a passion. I think because I was doing it and there was like a need, like not a need because you don't really need any of that stuff, but like the want for it is that these people who wanted it were pushing me to do it.
Do you think it was motivated by profit?
It was highly motivated by profit.
Yeah.
I was to the point where I had kiosk in a bunch of hair salons, and I would just open up bank accounts with the same place, and I would just go in and see this money in my bank account. And I'd be like, oh man, let's go to Miami for the weekend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was definitely motivated by profit, but it was also, motivated by the demand from the people.
Okay.
So.
And that translated into what has evolved today in terms of.
So now this is actually something I want to do. Like I'm not trying to please anyone. I'm not,
When did you decide that was the case? You weren't going to please people, but just really focus on what you wanted to do.
2 years ago. So 2 years ago was actually a very interesting part of life. Like I said, I was an accountant doing accounting work, like 12-hour days, 365 days a year, because money never stops. In accounting, you're always a month behind for some odd reason. You will never catch up. But I started getting these weird allergies, and it was from stress and the red meat and all just the bad food I was eating. So I was getting prescribed prednisone to calm these allergies down. I was getting prescribed a lot of prednisone, which is very bad.
Yeah.
So what happened was one of the side effects of prednisone is you get cataracts. So 2 years ago, I was about 80% blind.
Oh, wow.
So once I got
I remember you saying that.
my eyes fixed, and even to this day, I still have secondary cataracts. I'll never be the same.
Yeah.
That was at that moment in time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do.
Right.
Like, I could care less about someone counting. Accounting is the worst job because you're accounting someone else's money. It's like ridiculous.
But it goes to show that, sometimes the catalyst in life is something that's hard or difficult that motivates you to become what you might have actually been made for.
Yeah. And because of that, that's when I, chose to do art, and I had an opportunity to move down to Richmond, and I just took it because I was just sick of, the DMV, but that's home.
Yeah.
And I still go up there, and I love going up there every now and then because, it's a good reality check.
So you have formal training, obviously, in art, in jewelry design. You went to school for it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the business side of things. Do you notice a difference between the art forms you have that you don't have any formal training versus the ones you do have formal training for?
I think formal training is important in order to build a foundation. Like, for example, in regards to fashion, it's good to know, like, the history of fashion. Why we wear certain things. Why is this polo? Why does everyone wear a polo? Why is it even called a polo? It's a tennis shirt.
Yeah.
But because of branding, the business side of it, Ralph Lauren, for example, it's become a staple.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in regards to formal training, it's good to know the foundation of stuff, but also the business side of how to make money of being creative, whether it's in fashion, whether it's in taking pictures, whether it's in producing art.
And I think that's one of the main killers of someone's passion and dreams is the fact that they are, fearful, yes, to pursue something that they don't think is worthwhile. I think we live in a society where you're told, oh, you got to be a lawyer or an accountant or this or this. And rarely are you told, hey, go be a small business owner, or go be that videographer or photographer. Yeah. But
and I think that might be American culture. I mean, because I know in Europe, like, if you don't pass a certain test, you go into a vocational school, which is a respectable job. As well. Like, I've heard in Italy, like, a barista is a respectable job.
Yeah.
Then you come here, you have a teenager working at Starbucks.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. There's definitely a difference between how certain societies view jobs and the passions behind those jobs. There's several points to drive home, and that is the fact that you have several different outlets of creativity.
Yep.
Your involvement in Richmond Fashion Week, how has that been for you in terms of, as executive director, how do you maintain creativity in that role?
So, honestly, with Richmond Fashion Week, all we're really doing is putting on a show. the main source of inspiration is really
From the designers.
all the designers, all the models, basically the community.
Yeah.
The community is really what makes the show.
It is really impressive. If you haven't been to Richmond Fashion Week, it's a really impressive show that's put together, as you mentioned, and it's good that you said that. It's a team effort where the community comes in, from everyone from the models and the designers, of course, to the production of it all.
And the support. That's a big deal because, you know, the parents of the models, friends and families of the designers, the community, the photographers who all come, like, they are the ones who make the show happen. We are the ones who just make it, like, put it together for the, you know.
It's nice too because it's and you've been to bigger fashion shows. Couldn't you agree that at the bigger fashion shows, there's you kind of lose that sense of community, that sense of passion. But here in Richmond, it's still got that community feel, and that everyone's helping each other out.
Yeah. As you know, when I came on board, it was like a skeleton crew, and you know, with who they had at that moment in time, with that small amount of people, with the volunteers, and like they made the show run, and it was great.
Yeah.
Now I think we're at a point now where we have enough people to actually like take it to the next level. You know, we have the executive producer, which is Jimmy, executive director, which is me, director of photography, Michael, our logistics director, Kristen Dukes, who was also a former model, so she's very familiar with the backstage. She knows exactly what she...
Did you ever model?
No.
No?
No.
No. You have that look. Yeah, I thought you might have.
It goes back to the whole like growing up thing. You see all those ads and stuff.
Yeah.
When you have that many people like that you trust and you know are capable of doing what they need to do, like you can focus on other things. And that is now that the back end we know is going to run. We can focus on the customer service aspect of it, like getting to know the people who are coming to the shows, you know, cater to them, get more sponsorships involved, and you know, like more maybe media, more bloggers, and more photographers, and not just in Virginia. Like we want people coming from the outside, and we want people coming from the DMV, we want people coming from the 757, North Carolina. Philadelphia, that's not too far. You know? And I know these people come because I've met a bunch of them in the crowd, and they go there and they're spying. I wouldn't say they're spying, but maybe they're taking notes.
Taking notes. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. That means you're doing something right.
Yeah.
But so how do you channel all these? You mentioned when you were working 9 to 5, when you're planning a fashion week, when you are working with other creatives and still trying to pursue your creative outlet. How do you channel what advice would you give to channeling all of that creativity? No sleep, yes. I can relate to that.
The way that I'm able to handle stuff, time management is a huge deal. I mean, you got to treat it like it's a job, like it's a 9 to 5. You got to get up, you got to have your lunchtime. You got to have your breaks in between. You got to have a cutoff period. You know what I mean?
That's something I've realized myself in my workflow. Sometimes I find myself just at the house for a couple of days just working on editing, but then I still have to maintain that you know, certain amount of time to interact with clients, certain amount of time to edit, certain amount of time for myself. A big process for me is just making sure I exercise a little bit during the day.
You need to exercise, as you know, I'm active in tennis, basketball, and fishing. So, but as a creative, when you're doing that stuff, it does kind of put things into perspective. People talk about being in the zone, like I'm in the zone, don't bother me, I'm editing. But that's kind of detrimental in itself too, because you're going to burn out.
I agree. Yeah. No, I agree to that. I think you have to, at some point, be isolated to get in your zone, but at the same time, you have to know when to get out of your zone.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's critical. So the biggest thing you would mention is structure, time management, having that structure to allow yourself to pursue those. Do you think some people are just better suited to do multiple things? I know that's the thing, because I know I can only focus on one thing at a time, but you seem like you can focus on maybe 3 things at a time. Or do you think it's something that just some people are born better with?
I think environment has a big play in it. I think that if you're around chaos, you will attune to it better. Like, I can't work without like music blaring. You know what I mean? I can't work with like loud noises. Like, I need transparent noise. But I'm the type to listen to the same song on repeat for like 8 hours.
Yep.
And then it'll feel like, you know, only like 30, 40 minutes went by. And, you know.
And what kind of music do you listen to?
Whatever YouTube suggests.
Is it more ambient, or is it more like you said you like louder?
It's high end. It's loud. Like, I'll listen to like, I don't know, French rap, which is kind of odd, K-pop, 90s R&B. Lately it's been 90s hip hop, you know, political and, you know, stuff that's been going on. Yeah. It's funny because like I grew up at that time when we still have these issues that are happening now happen then, you know? And from a creative standpoint, like the art then is relevant now, you know, with like that kind of hip hop. Whatever is happening, like you know, you can go out and you see on social media, like beautiful images of protest. It's not just chaos. Like, if you could just like look at the colors of, you know, what's going on, it's like, yeah, this is happening, but this is like a good way to, you know, portray it, for example. So, in regards to like the chaos and stuff and kind of putting it all together, like the environment does has a big deal.
Big deal with
And I'm a sugar addict, so I'm just like constantly, like, I'll eat a whole bag of potato chips and candy while just doing, you know, editing and stuff, and just, who knows?
I'm not sure if that's the best advice, but yeah.
No, it's horrible advice. I mean, sugar is like the worst drug.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But so what advice, in closing, what advice would you give to up-and-coming models that are interested in Fashion Week? What advice would you give to up-and-coming designers? Because you've done a lot of different things. You have, as I keep mentioning, multiple different avenues of creativity. What advice would you give to, first off, models? For models, drink a lot of water, first and foremost. You're going to make the makeup artist job easier. You're talking about when they're going to...
No, just in general. Like,
okay.
if you're really like thinking about, you know, modeling, and this is like across the board. This is like for petite model, plus size model, runway model, print model, catalog, swimwear. Drink water. Like, take it seriously, you know, like, don't, you know, be healthy. If you're going to be a model, you're going to give that lifestyle, be like healthy. Yeah. You know, and then do your research, just like study poses, work with a photographer that you're comfortable with, and, you know, really critique yourself on what you're doing, and then network with other boutiques, you know, to model their clothes, you know, and then you can get a team together and, you know, work that way. Because the thing with Richmond Fashion Week is, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. We have a lot of beautiful people coming in to try out, but we can only select a small few. But what we're trying to do is also now build it to where boutiques can have their own fashion show. Okay. So there will be more opportunities for models who don't get selected for the RVA Fashion Week show itself. There'll be a lot of other opportunities. So my biggest thing for models is drink water, stay healthy, practice your poses, and network. Network with photographers, network with the boutique owners.
And similar advice to, say, designers, or how would that differ?
Designers, oh man. Designers definitely study. Yeah. Designers should definitely study, like, first and foremost, their aesthetic, like whatever. One thing designers do is that they'll have a collection, and then the very next season, their collection will be like completely off kilter. Like, there's no coherent theme, so they can't really build a brand around it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So like, a good way of doing that is like work around denim, for example, or work around black, and just utilize that. So if your spring collection is, you know, works around denim, your fall collection will work around denim. So there will be like a coherency. So for designers, definitely study, definitely focus on like a foundation piece, like built like the little black empires have been made on the little black dress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Empires have been made on a polo shirt and a blazer and an Oxford.
Yeah.
And that is like consistent all across the board. You know what I mean?
And how important for both of these that we talked about, modeling and designers, you mentioned you went to school for the business side of things. How important is it for someone up and coming to consider the business aspect of things?
You should always have the business side in, because the creative side, the modeling aspirations and the designer aspirations is all dreams. Like you're dreaming to become like someone big. Mm-hmm. But the business side takes you back to reality. Like you need to eat.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you have to be able to provide for yourself and sustain that creative growth.
So it's important to understand budgeting. It's important to understand opening an LLC. Like you're spending all this money to buy fabric and stuff. Why don't you write it off? You know, like,
and it also just protects
travel.
yourself.
Traveling, like all that stuff. Like the business side is so important, and it's good to have a mentor. You should have a mentor, especially in regards to that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be a very expensive lesson at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So for them, like even as a model, like let's say you're a model, it doesn't hurt to create an LLC so you can at least write off your mileage, your gas, your food.
Yeah. I never really thought about that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's cool.
So, and it's no different for, the designers. Like the business side is so important, but we're so focused on the end goal of being famous or being known that we forget that what's in front of us is right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they should take, if anything, an accounting class.
Do you think they need to go out and take a class, or is that something you can look up on YouTube?
That's something they could look up on YouTube. Yeah. It takes like an hour to create an LLC, get your federal EIN number. Mm-hmm. Everything is online now. You don't have to do anything.
So definitely good advice. I think we're going to wrap it up here, but with everything that we've talked about, just keep in mind the takeaways. That is having a structure to your creative outlets that will allow you to, if you do have multiple outlets, to better channel in and focus on those, and ultimately find and achieve your goal in creativity. Maybe it's to get famous, maybe it's to make money, maybe it's to pursue a passion, or maybe whatever the reason might be.
Yeah.
Just find ways to channel that creative energy. And as we talked about, structure is one way, time management, educate yourself in the industry, in the passion. And the biggest takeaway, just don't quit. Just keep going with it and find inspiration wherever you can. I appreciate being on the show, Ryan. Thanks again.
No, thank you.
And if you're interested in being on the show, shoot me an email, send me a DM. If you have topics or ideas for the show, for the podcast, please hit me up. I hope everyone's doing all right. I will catch you next time. Thank you.